Well, hello. I said I would give you a second review of the Floridian, and once I got back home and had a haircut and rested just a little bit, which I have done all of that. So let me get this out of the way because I'm filming this the last weekend of May. So travel season is starting, and what you need to know or what you'd like to know more about the Floridian that I took last week to Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, and I took it in December to Chicago, just for my maiden voyage, just to say that I have been on the train. And there was a difference, so I'm going to say that. Now I will say, and I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet. If you have any questions, generally or specifically about your trip, post them in the comments. I will be glad to answer them to the best of my ability because I know I'm going to leave some things out and I'm trying to organize it in my head. But I want to give a disclaimer, two disclaimers. One is that whatever I say on the channel, and particularly about routes and Amtrak and specifically, is I do this because I'm not trying to deter people from riding the train. I know some comments that I make sometimes on the threads, social media threads, get deleted because I give an honest response when people ask questions. And there's always room for improvement. I do love Amtrak. I do love riding Amtrak. And I found that if you and the reason that I started doing this channel just as for family and friends. So I got tired of telling everybody I know how my trip was. So I got that started that way, and then it just morphed into being a channel for everybody who wants to watch. And I'm glad you're here. And it started out being telling you how to travel cheap. I don't know if there's any cheap travel right now. But I will try to do that. And I found out that I could have saved 90% fare on the Floridian if I had just not had had a sleeper car, to tell you the truth. Couldn't tell much difference in that and coach. Um, so yeah. Um, so then what I want to do is tell my honest observations. Um, the pros and cons of everything, and being as realistic as possible. Because what happens, I have seen on different threads on social media all over the place, that people ride for the first time and everybody says, "Oh, this is do this, this, and this, and this," and you'll have a wonderful time. I see other, not to throw shade on anybody else who does. Who are content creators who have hundreds of thousands of subscribers and all of that. They're, yes, upbeat, and this was wonderful, and that's wonderful. Um, Not everything is totally wonderful. And then when you see all this, it's just human nature, when you see all this, um, and your trip didn't turn out that way, you're less inclined to want to do it again. So that's not what I try to do. I try to prepare you as much as possible for your trip so that you can, I'm making the mistakes for you so that you can not, so that you can avoid some of the things that I went through. So that's the way I frame this channel. So that's just my disclaimer in the beginning. It's not anything bad about Amtrak. I'm giving you my observations from what I saw and how you can maneuver your trip to be more pleasant. So that having been said, yes, so I rode the Floridian. I rode it from North Carolina, from Cary, North Carolina to Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. It's only an 8-hour ride. Now, why I did that, two reasons. One, it's a straight route with the Floridian, and the second reason is that I'm not able to really sit up for long periods of time, and the sleeper car, and I get a roomette, that's the cheapest sleeper car, sleeper accommodation, allows me to lie down and rest my back. So that helps a lot. Um, so what I could have done, and was from Cary. I could have gone to DC on the Carolinian, which is one of North Carolina's trains, and then gotten off at Washington, D.C. at Union Station. I could have either taken the MARC train to Harper's Ferry, which is a commuter train. I'm understanding from a writer there that he says $16 and $18, and I don't know which was, he was talking about two different fares, and I don't know which one was Amtrak for him or which one was MARC, but it's not that expensive. Or I could have taken the Floridian from Washington, D.C. to Harper's Ferry. Um, I decided, not knowing any better, it would be easier just to take it straight on. But if I took the Carolinian, it would have to be in coach, and it would all have to be in coach. Um, Coach ticket was 10% of the roomette tickets. That's all I'm going to say. I do not understand why it's $100 more to come back. If you know, let me know why it's $100 more to come back in a roomette on the Floridian than it is to go when it's the same amount of miles. And I don't think the difference was the food, because I'll get into that in a minute, because I did miss a meal. Um, yeah. Um, so that meals are included in the roomette. So, so with that, I found out it's the only time I've ever taken a train. And I've taken several long distance trains. I mean, those that have sleeper cars. I've taken, for those of you who don't know, before the pandemic, the year and a half before the pandemic, I went across country 6 times and other places too. And I rode over 20,000 miles with the intent, not the intent of having a pandemic, but with the intent of continuing that and riding as many trains as I could and have all the experiences I could. So I do have some um, working knowledge of how Amtrak works and long distance trains and sleeper cars and this, that, and the other. Okay. So I did notice it was the first time that I have gotten on that I was the only one that had a sleeper car. That should have been my first red flag, was why is everybody in coach? Um, can't be just the price difference. And I think a lot of people were going to New York because that used to be the Silver Star at that area. And I know I digress when I'm talking a little bit, but try to just bear with me as I think a lot of people go to New York, so you have to get off in Washington, D.C. Um, must not have been a lot of people going to Chicago, not from Cary. I found that to be true in December. My daughter and I were the only ones going to Chicago from Cary, but other people were getting in sleeper cars to go to other places. Um, so that has changed. Everybody was bumping in, going into the coach area. The door was open for the coach. So they told me to wait. And, they had to open up the sleeper car, pull the train up and open up the door for the sleeper car to let me on, just one person, which is what is the way it's supposed to be. I noticed the train's a little bit longer. The big thing I noticed about that train that I did notice was that the Floridian is a combination of the Silver Star and the Capital Limited. The Silver Star used to run from Miami to New York. I call that the Miami to New York train. And then the Capital Limited was the DC to Chicago train, ridden both of them several different times. Back in December, that was true. They were the combination. It looked like one consistent train. If you've ridden Amtrak, you know what I'm talking about, or look at it next time you ride Amtrak. The train looks like it's one consistent train. Um, this train was just haphazard. Like the cafe car was from the Northeast Regional. They were from different trains. It was just a mismatch, a patchwork quilt type train look. So I did notice that, and I thought, what's the Northeast Regional train doing on here? Okay, so that's another difference. And I noticed all along the way, people were still, they were taking coach, going to DC. And I was the only one I thought going to Harper's Ferry. And come to find out a couple of days, every day I went to the train station when I was at Harper's Ferry and to see which track the train was coming on. I do have a video about the Harper's Ferry's train station. Please watch that if you if thinking about going to Harper's Ferry. I'm going to give some tips about Harper's Ferry in general, a video about that. But yeah, but I thought I was the only one who got off at Harper's Ferry, and come to find out, I was not. Coach people got off, but they almost forgot to let me off at Harper's Ferry. I was let off in the grass because the car attendant, hung his head out the window and said, "Hey, don't forget about me." And I'll tell you how all this happened. Mish mash mosh. It was not a sleeper car experience. Okay, so what I would say and advise anybody, my tip number one, if you're going anywhere near DC, to seriously consider either taking another train or take coach. It seems like the closer you get, because in DC they changed crews. So as soon as I got on the train in Cary, the guy thought I was getting off in DC. He said, "No, um, I had him as a car attendant before. He's very good, but his mind was on getting off work." Now that's one big difference I've noticed in the crew from December. They treated you like, I mean, for customer service, I've worked in customer service before in my life. And even if somebody comes in at closing, and we don't like that, people coming in at closing, we're ready to go home, but that person needs to be treated the same way as the first person of your shift. And I did not find that to be the case, going or coming. So they're in their mind, they've gone home already. So, so I did get lunch. We were 4 hours late. Now, the Silver Star part of, I'll just call it Silver Star, the Floridian part, Silver Star part is always a late train. Never been 4 hours late. When I ran to I did run, he said, the car attendant told me going when I got on in Cary, that was like noon then. Supposed to get on at 8:30 in the morning. We got on like 12:30. He said, you can still get lunch. And he was really nice. He's really good. He said, you can still get lunch. Just worry about your bags later. Go in there and tell him I sent you. And he told me his name, and I cannot remember it for the life of me. But I always give him a compliment on the Amtrak website. And he said, tell them I told you you can get a lunch. So I ran in there, the last one to be seated, I think, and they did have some food left. So the two gentlemen across from me had spent the night. They got on in Florida, I think. And they were talking about what took so long. One got on in Florida and one didn't. But they said, what took the train 4 hours? Well, come to find out what happened, and it's happened more than once recently. They have engine problems. Now, I'm glad they're having engine problems before they start. I have been on a train where they had engine problems on the tracks and they have to wait to send an engine. You don't want to be in the middle of the plains. That happens. That happened to me. Don't know if I was in Iowa or wherever. I'm digressing, but it's better that it happens in Miami or Chicago. It's happened in both places where there was something wrong with the engine and they had to go and switch the engines out. So, listening to them talk, and just my observations, it seems to me like right now, instead of having a consistent train, and I know it's a temporary train, it is a temporary train until they get the work done in New York that needs to be done so they can resume the regular routes. But still, seems to me like what they're doing is just picking cars and engines from wherever they can. So have that in mind. If you don't want to potentially wait hours and hours and hours, and no, they do not make up time, not much if they do. take another train if you can. And if you have to get on the Floridian, have it as a commuter. A good place that everybody's getting on and off is DC, to be honest. Um, and they're taking another train to DC, unless you're spending the night. Now, if you're going long distances, if you are going overnight, um, I think it's worth it. It's going to be slow. More than likely, it's going to be slow. Could be real slow. I think it was a day late one day, but that was weather related mostly. But you never know. If you got all the time in the world and you're going to spend the night, then I would suggest yes, do your sleeper car, pay the big bucks to get in there and do it, and you'll be fine, I guess. I'm assuming that would be the case. But if you're not, um, actually, I felt like I was in a cattle car. It was rush, rush, rush. The whole thing was rush, 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 because they were so far behind, and they're trying to do what they could do. They're trying to, the guy that my car attendant wasn't care was trying to clean up so he could get off and get off work in DC. And then once the second crew came, I had to tell them that I'm getting off. I'm not going to Chicago, and I don't want to ride to Chicago. And I know I'm the only ones getting off at Harper Ferry, probably. And don't leave me. That's where I got off in the grass at 9:30 at night when he did yell out the window, don't forget about me, because I thought they were, and that was not fun. Like I said, to me that's a coach fair trip. I would have been just as well in coach. Now coming back was really interesting. Same thing. They were only 2 hours late. Instead of coming at 11:30, which is lunchtime, they came at no, hour and a half late. They came at 2. Okay, so we got on, and the first thing was they were not opening on this train. They were not opening any doors. Well, going up too. They did not, later in the evening, they did not open up any doors but one. It was cafe car because I heard the announcement. For the whole train, get off at one exit, the cafe car, and I think it was to save time because they were 4 hours late. Um, so you had to go to the cafe car. So that I didn't hear where I was supposed to go, and that there was some miscommunication. That's why my car attendant, like normally, you get off where your car is, and that's the way it works. And I almost got left. I mean, I almost wound up at Chicago, I guess. I don't know. So they're only going to, so be prepared for that. If you don't ride the whole way and they are really late, what they're doing now is they're only opening one door. So listen to where that one door is for the whole train. So coming back, what happened was they only opened one door. That was the first door of the coach. And they had several coach cars like they always do. There always more coach cars, 3 or 4. There were 3 sleeper cars, cafe car and a diner. And I was in the furthest sleeper car, the 12 car, which was the last car. And then the baggage car was the last car. But yeah, so I thought, well, I am not going to get left. If I get left, well, that's another thing about Harper's Ferry. There's no attendant there's working there. So, and it only comes once a day. So I would have been totally messed up if I had missed it. So I went over, and there were only like maybe a half a dozen total getting on. I don't think 4 to 6, not very many getting on. I told her who I was, and I have a sleeper car. And she said, "Yeah, we know, they pull up on their little things." And she had my name, and yeah, we're expecting you. Get on and turn left. I had to walk the car, I mean the train. They were not pull up like they didn't carry and open a sleeper car door. Didn't matter which one, just open one and let me get on there. They had me walk the entire train. I had luggage because there's nobody there to check bags at Harper's Fair because nobody works there. Um, so I was trying to get down the aisle. For those of you who have, for those of you who have ridden Amtrak, you know it's not that wide. And then the train took off immediately. There was no messing around. They took off immediately. So trying to walk with to a backpack, a bag of food that a pack I hold that has food, and then push my suitcase through the entire train. And nobody offered to help. I mean, like crew. Nobody offered to help. Nobody asked what I was doing. Nobody noticed me until I got to car 12, and then my car attendant, when I opened the door, evidently he was waiting for me to come. So when the car door opened, I had opened the car doors and everything myself and go through tracking my stuff. I'm laughing now, but it wasn't really funny because that's why I say I should have just paid for coach fare. There wasn't anything special about the roomette fare, to be honest, for that shorter trip. And again, they were all ready to get off in DC and end their shift. So I got to my roomette, and the guy was nice. I mean, he said, "We are going to feed you. Um, we're not going to let you." I said, "Well, I was on my way to the cafe car because I figured we missed lunch." And I said, "I haven't eaten since well, I didn't really have breakfast. That's another issue. Harper's Ferry doesn't have a breakfast place." So I had taken some muffins. So I had a muffin and a cup of coffee for breakfast, and I was hungry. I had had just snacks and the snacks I brought with me. And so, lesson learned. And so I was hungry, and I said, "Well, I'm headed for the cafe car." He said, "No, we'll get you something to eat. You don't need to spend your money." He was being really nice, but he was incorrect. We were not fed. I did not get my meal. And nobody seemed to really care. So, if you wanted something to eat, you had to go buy lunch at the cafe car. I've already paid for my lunch. So, yeah, I should have just paid for I should have just paid for coach fare um, with all the ups and downs and bumps and ins and outs and what they were doing. Oh, and eating. I almost missed dinner because it's 4 hours late. And coming into Harper's Ferry um, was around dinner time, and they had already taken our reservation time for dinner. And then, of course, the one who took the reservation time left and got off at DC. The new person, they said, "Well, we're going to go around and take more reservations." And I'm like, the guy came around, he said, "We can give you 8, 8:30, 9 o'clock." And I said, "Wait, I'll be off the train by then. I haven't eaten. Had a 5 o'clock appointment back before DC. Are we just starting completely over? And you get the reservations from the last person?" He said, "No, yeah, we're starting completely over." He said, "But in your case, I'll put you first, and you can eat before you get off." Well, he said, "And then have it sent to your room, and then that's faster." So I did, and I don't do well eating in my room and banging, rocking in the train. And I got the steak dinner. And as soon as I started eating, he said, "It's time for you to get off in 30 minutes." So, to make a long story, short story long here, I ate the vegetables, the mashed potatoes and the green beans, and then I just rolled up. They didn't bring napkins and knife or anything, so I was just stabbing the steak and eating the steak like that. There was nothing to cut it with. I found something. The dessert was in a aluminum foil. I made it so that I could roll the steak up in uh, not next to the dessert, the cheesecake, but in the same wrapper. So I had cheesecake I had my steak the next morning for breakfast. Like I said, um, so that was my experience. Um, I almost didn't get fed dinner the first night, had to take it as to go, literally. I missed lunch coming back, so it was not worth a roomette. So that's why I say just if you're on a short, now if you're on, like I said, the overnight trip, you go, or you're not going anywhere near DC, because that's where they changed the cruise. If you're not going anywhere near DC, it's probably fine. If you're going overnight long trip, say like from Miami to Chicago or somewhere, Miami to Pittsburgh, so wherever, a long overnight trip's probably fine. But if you're going anywhere near DC, that's a day trip, like mine was supposed to be 8 hours, um, it's confusing. Take coach. Just suck it up and take coach. Save your money. I paid 600 and some dollars. No, yeah, coming back. I paid $1,200 for the room for this type service. I paid $1,200. It would have cost me, yeah, it wouldn't have cost me, I say 10%. It wasn't 10%, but it would just cost me a few hundred. Um, but I paid $1,200 to be treated that way. And if any of you say what I'm going to do, yes, I did file a complaint with Amtrak. I asked to have an adjustment on my fare. That's what I did. And I explained I should not have had to walk the whole train. Nobody helping, nobody whatever. And I made it sound pitiful too. So that was my experience. I did not have this experience at all in December when they first started the train. So the big differences were, I think, a lot of the crew, the mishaps back then in December came from a lot of the crew were brand new hires. Um, so I cut them some slack for that. But the train looked like it was all together into one train. It did run smooth. It was late, but not 4 hours late, but it was late. But now it seems like they're hodgepodging the cars, putting them here from this train here, from that train. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I've noticed a difference I've had several of the same people as crew members, and I've noticed a difference in their morale. So I don't know what that is. But I did notice a difference in the morale. Back in the day, back in the day, which is before the pandemic, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, when I was traveling before, I would have had several people offer to help me. I would not have been allowed to carry my luggage by myself and just trying to roll it and sloshing, from seat to seat, side to side, the way it rolls. Um, so I don't know if this is a review or just me venting. I'm just telling you my story. My tip from this is if you go anywhere near Washington, D.C. on your trip, and it's not a long overnight, like 24-hour trip at least, find other accommodations and go coach. Or find other accommodations if you can that has another sleeper area. This was not it. I paid, like I said, I paid $1,200 for this kind of treatment. To miss a meal, in addition to having to do all my luggage and carrying, almost got left. Had to go in the weeds and walk all the way back to the train station at 9:30 at night. It's in the dark. To missing a meal, to having a meal that I had to eat the next morning for breakfast. Um, yeah, it wasn't a relaxing ride. So if I'm going to be unrelaxed, stressed out, I can be that in coach. Um, that doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to ride it again, except as a connector. I want to go back to Harper's Ferry. I will ride coach. I will ride the Carolinian. I may ride Mark over and just skip the Floridian altogether if it's still running when I'm go back. But that's just my experience. My my kind of a review is that I think it's gone downhill from the way it was when it first opened up. It opened up in November 2024. I got on in December 2024, and I can tell a huge difference. I can tell a huge difference in that and all the other trains I've ever been on. Um, I will have to say the dining they do cook. I will have to say that. But anyway, thank you for watching. Hope you have safe travels, the ones that are traveling. If you have any questions, you can look at my playlist sections and you probably have answered the questions about what type of cars and what type of sleeper cars. I have videos describing the sleeper cars in that in the playlist. So do that. So I do appreciate you, and I did want to do this now that people have started traveling. Not to say not to ever take it. I'm just telling you what I would do, and if you do it, be prepared. Just be prepared. Okay, everybody. Let's get this off. I can never get this turned to the recording. Oh, so everybody, you have happy rails and safe travels.